Most people spend their whole lives trying to change the scene. New jobs, new relationships, new plans, but never realize the secret Neville Goddard discovered. The scene can't change until the actor does. You can't live a new story while rehearsing the same old emotions. The outer world is only a mirror reflecting your inner state. What if everything you've been chasing already exists, just in another version of you? What if your only real task isn't to get something, but to become someone? That's the paradox Neville taught. The more you become the fulfilled version of yourself, the faster life bends to match it. This video will show you why imagination creates reality, why feeling is the secret, and how to play the role so fully that the world has no choice but to join your performance. When you truly embody the wish fulfilled, life stops being a struggle and becomes a stage where your inner conviction writes every scene. Every desire is an invitation, a quiet whisper from life asking you to become someone new. Neville Goddard taught that the moment a wish is born, a new version of you is also born in imagination. But most people keep standing in the old costume, wondering why the new scene never appears. The truth is simple. You can't play a new part while clinging to your old script. Desire demands transformation before manifestation. Think of it like a movie. The director doesn't hand you the next scene until you step fully into your role. You can't play the part of abundance while rehearsing lines of lack. The law of assumption says you must assume the wish fulfilled, not wish for it, not chase it, but live in the end as though it's already true. The script of life responds to who you are being, not what you are wanting. Most people wait for external confirmation before acting. They say, when I get the job, then I'll feel confident, or when I'm loved, then I'll feel secure. But Neville's teachings flip this logic. You must feel confident to attract the job, feel love to attract love. You must play the role before the applause comes. Because imagination creates reality, not reaction. The stage waits for your cue, not your complaints. Imagine an actor showing up on set, still thinking about his last movie. He forgets his new lines, misses his marks, and the scene falls apart. That's what happens when we try to create new outcomes while thinking like our old self. You're still living the past role, emotionally speaking. Manifestation truth begins when you consciously say, that's not who I am anymore, and dare to walk into a new identity. Every desire is more than a craving. It's a calling to shift states. You don't manifest money, relationships, or success. You manifest states of consciousness that naturally produce them. When you change your state, the outer world rearranges like scenery behind a curtain. That's the essence of conscious creation. Your inner world writes the story, and the world performs it without resistance. It's almost comical how hard we try to change life without changing ourselves. We redecorate the stage, repaint the background, rearrange the cast, but we stay the same actor. Then we wonder why the play doesn't change. Neville Goddard would say, you are the operant power. Until you embody that truth, you're not directing your play. You're just reacting to it. You've probably noticed this pattern in your own life. When you feel successful, even before success arrives, things start moving. People call, opportunities show up. That's not coincidence. That's the law in action. The moment you act the part sincerely, you open the door to the new scene. Feeling is the secret, because feeling turns imagination into experience. Sometimes the old role feels safer. It's familiar, even when it hurts. But comfort is the enemy of creation. You can't manifest freedom while emotionally addicted to limitation. That's why inner work matters. It's costume rehearsal for your next life chapter. The question isn't, what do I want? It's, who must I become to live it effortlessly? Your imagination is the wardrobe room of reality. Inside it, every version of you already exists. The abundant you, the peaceful you, the loved you. The law of assumption invites you to try on that version until it feels natural. Don't force it. Feel it. That's when the scene begins to form around you, piece by piece, almost magically. And that's the beauty of this journey. Once you realize you're the actor and the author, waiting loses its meaning. You're not chasing the next scene. You're creating it through your inner posture. But if the role determines the scene, what happens when the character itself transforms completely? Neville Goddard used to say, the world is yourself pushed out. It's one of those phrases that sounds poetic until you see how literal it really is. Every interaction, every coincidence, every delay or breakthrough, each is a mirror reflecting your inner world. The law of assumption teaches that life doesn't respond to what you want. It mirrors who you are being. When you change that inner role, The outer set instantly begins to rearrange. Think of it as an enormous theater production. Your subconscious is the stage designer, your beliefs are the lights, and your assumptions are the director calling the shots. The moment you step into a new identity, say from I'm unlucky to I'm favored, props begin to move, lights shift, and the script adapts. What once seemed coincidence now feels scripted in your favor. That's conscious creation in motion. You've probably noticed how your mood colors your day. Wake up grateful and everything flows. Wake up irritated and suddenly traffic, co-workers, and even technology conspire against you. That's not luck, it's reflection. Neville's teachings remind us that your state of being sets the tone for the entire day's performance. When you assume the wish fulfilled, you're rewriting the script in real time. There's a power in seeing yourself as the cause, not the effect. It moves you from victim to creator. The moment you stop blaming circumstances and start adjusting your inner state, life begins to cooperate in unexpected ways. Doors that were once locked start creaking open. The scene isn't resisting you, it's just waiting for your new cue. It's like tuning a radio. The music was always there. You just couldn't hear it because you were on the wrong frequency. Likewise, the version of life you want already exists. The abundant you, the peaceful you, the fulfilled you, all broadcasting on their own wavelengths. Change your state, and suddenly you're hearing a whole new song. That's the real manifestation truth. And here's the twist. The outer world doesn't argue. It doesn't ask if you deserve it. It simply reflects your assumption. That's why some people seem lucky. They're not. They're just living in the end unconsciously. They've assumed good fortune as natural, so the play writes itself that way. Feeling is the secret ingredient that fuses belief with reality. Many resist this idea because it puts responsibility back in their hands. It's easier to blame the stage than to admit you're the playwright. But freedom begins when you realize nothing out there has independent power. Everything bends to the power of assumption. You decide the role, and the stage obeys. When you start testing this consciously, life becomes thrilling. You'll see how quickly scenes shift when you change your inner dialogue. One moment you're worried about money, the next you act as though it's handled, and suddenly opportunities appear. It's not magic, it's alignment. Your inner world spoke first, and the outer world listened. Neville's wisdom was never about wishful thinking. It was about identity. He knew that when you live in the end, you stop negotiating with reality. You start being it. The outer world can't help but play along, because it's only ever been your own imagination projected outward. And once you grasp that your world is a mirror, a question naturally arises. If the mirror always reflects your inner self, what happens when you stop trying to change the reflection and finally change the one looking into it? It's like watching someone rearrange the furniture in a play while refusing to change the script. Most people want new results, but they're still rehearsing the same emotional lines. They speak affirmations from the old self, trying to decorate the same mindset with new wallpaper. But Neville Goddard's teachings reveal a deeper truth. The outer scene can't change permanently until the inner actor changes his role. Otherwise, the same story keeps repeating, just with new props. The law of assumption works through identity, not effort. You can work harder, hustle more, pray louder, but if you keep identifying as the one who doesn't have, the vibration of lack colors every action. You can't outact your state of being. Manifestation isn't about forcing results. It's about becoming the version of yourself for whom those results are normal. When you act the part with conviction, life adjusts the scenery without resistance. Imagine a person who wins money through luck, but still thinks poor. Within months, they're broke again. Not because of chance, but because their state never changed. They tried to alter the outer picture without shifting the inner film. That's why Neville emphasized feeling from the end, not just thinking about it. When you live in the end, you dissolve the gap between I want and I am. It's the same in relationships. Someone can attract love temporarily, but if deep down they still feel unworthy, they'll sabotage it. The subconscious doesn't follow words, it follows identity. That's the hidden mechanism behind why some manifestations vanish after arriving. They were never supported by a consistent state of being. The actor stepped out of costume mid-scene. This is why repetition matters. Not mechanical repetition, but emotional rehearsal. You're reprogramming your self-image through consistent feeling. Each time you act as the new version of yourself, you're telling the subconscious, this is who I am now. Over time, that feeling hardens into fact. The play no longer requires effort. It flows naturally from who you've become. People often mistake acting for pretending, but pretending implies you don't believe it's true. Playing the role, in Neville's sense, means you believe so deeply that reality has no choice but to comply. That's conscious creation, the deliberate embodiment of a truth unseen yet undeniable within. When you maintain that assumption, the outer world conforms, even if it resists at first. Think of a thermostat. You can open the window and let cold air in, but the thermostat will always bring the room back to its set temperature. Your inner identity works the same way. Unless you reset it, life keeps returning to familiar levels of wealth, love, peace, or chaos. Real change happens only when you change your state, not just your circumstances. This explains why people chase manifestation techniques but feel stuck. They jump from scripting to visualization to affirmations, hoping the method will do the work. But methods are mirrors of your belief. Without the internal shift, they're just rituals of wishful thinking. The universe doesn't respond to how many times you repeat it. It responds to how naturally you feel it. Once you understand this, you stop trying to fix scenes. You start upgrading actors. Every time you notice the same unwanted pattern, ask, who am I being right now? That question is the key to breaking the loop. Because once the character changes, the scene has no choice but to follow. And if changing the scene doesn't work, what if the real breakthrough comes from changing who's standing on the stage? Most people sit down to visualize with good intentions, but they carry their old mindset into the process. They close their eyes and imagine what they want, but deep inside they're still the same person who doesn't have it. That's why Neville Goddard said, "You cannot be both the old man and the new man." Visualization isn't about watching the change, it's about being the change. When you imagine from the end, you're not hoping it's already done. Think of it like this. There's a vast difference between seeing a movie and acting in one. The old self watches the scene play out and wonders, will this really happen? The new self is in the scene, touching, feeling, breathing it as reality. That's what Neville meant by assume the wish fulfilled. You don't look at the picture of your dream. You step inside it. You smell the air, hear the sounds, feel the emotions. You live in the end. The reason many visualizations don't manifest is because they're done from separation. The person imagines what they want, but feels the lack of it more strongly. It's like pressing the gas pedal while holding the brake. They're affirming, I want it, but subconsciously whispering, I don't have it. The subconscious hears the feeling, not the words. That's why feeling is the secret. It bypasses the mind and speaks the language of creation. Neville taught that imagination creates reality, but imagination must be felt as real to become creative. It's not about daydreaming, it's about inner embodiment. When you visualize as the new self, you're not wishing, you're remembering. It's déjà vu from your future. Every time you rehearse that identity in imagination, you reinforce the state until it becomes natural, and the world mirrors it back. Picture someone visualizing wealth but feeling anxious about bills. The image and emotion are in conflict, and the stronger one wins. The subconscious doesn't manifest the picture. It manifests the feeling of truth. That's why alignment matters more than technique. When you truly feel prosperous, you don't need to convince yourself. You simply know. That knowing is the seed that reality must grow. Neville called it living in the end for a reason. The end implies completion. No effort, no trying, no hoping. You've arrived in consciousness before arriving in form. And because your outer world is a stage set by your inner state, life has to catch up. The scene cannot deny the actor's conviction. Once you feel it real, it's already written in the script. This shift is subtle but powerful. When you imagine as the fulfilled self, you stop asking when and start saying thank you. You move from longing to ownership, from tension to peace. That peace is creative. It signals that you've entered a new frequency, a new role, and the stage begins to rearrange itself accordingly. Conscious creation isn't struggle, it's surrender into being. A helpful trick? Before you visualize, pause and ask, who am I being right now? If the answer is someone trying, you're still the old self. Instead, breathe and become the one who already has it. Visualize not as a beggar, but as a benefactor. Not as the seeker, but as the finder. The feeling changes everything. It's the same principle actors use. They don't hope to become the character. They are the character while the camera rolls. And because imagination is the camera of consciousness, you must perform with sincerity. That's how the mind records your new reality. The more vividly you live it inside, the faster life plays it outside. And if visualization feels hard, it's only because the old self is still holding the pen. But what happens when you let the new self start writing the scene? Neville Goddard always returned to one core idea: embodiment. To truly manifest, you must become the wish fulfilled, not someday, not when it's convenient, but now. The law of assumption isn't about pretending, it's about stepping fully into the feeling of your fulfilled desire. When you think, speak, and act from that inner knowing, you're not faking it, you're faithing it. Reality follows the emotional tone you carry, not the logic you explain. Imagine someone who wants to manifest confidence but keeps saying, "I'm trying to be confident." That phrase alone tells the subconscious they're not yet confident. Embodiment flips that script. Instead of trying, you assume the feeling now. Shoulders back, voice steady, decisions made without hesitation. You speak from authority, not apology. The body becomes the message, and life mirrors it right back. Neville called this living in the end. It's the art of feeling from fulfillment rather than toward it. The person who already has what you want moves differently, speaks differently, carries a different energy. By embodying that now, you collapse the distance between desire and manifestation. You stop chasing outcomes and start magnetizing them through your state of being. Think of embodiment as emotional muscle memory. The more you live as your desired self, the more natural it feels. At first, it may seem like acting, but remember, every new version of you begins as practice. Even an actor rehearses until the role becomes second nature. Soon, you're no longer acting as if, you're living as is. That's the power of assumption taking root. Words are spells in motion. When you speak from the end, you're casting creative energy into form. I am loved. I am capable. I am abundant. These aren't just affirmations. They're declarations of identity. Speak them as truth, not hope. The subconscious accepts repetition backed by emotion. That's how new realities get installed into the fabric of your life. Embodiment also means emotional discipline. You stop reacting as the old self and respond as the new. When challenges come, you ask, how would the fulfilled version of me handle this? That question recenters your state instantly. Conscious creation isn't about avoiding contrast, it's about responding from a higher identity. That's when manifestation becomes mastery. Your imagination becomes your rehearsal room. Picture yourself at peace, speaking with calm authority, feeling secure. Move as that version. Breathe as that version. When you feel from the end, your nervous system adapts, your vibration aligns, your world obeys. Embodiment turns abstract spirituality into practical power. Neville's teachings made that simple yet profound. There's a magnetic quality to people who live this way. You can sense their certainty before they speak. They don't chase results. Results chase them. That's the law at work. The outer world rearranging to match an inner conviction. When you assume the wish fulfilled so naturally that you forget you're assuming, manifestation becomes a side effect of being. At first, it feels like you're imagining something unseen, but soon it feels like remembering something inevitable. That's when you've crossed the threshold between effort and ease. Feeling is the secret, because feeling creates the fusion between thought and form. It's not imagination anymore, it's incarnation. And once you start living from the end, something incredible happens. The world stops testing your patience and starts reflecting your posture. But what if you could train your mind to fall asleep already in that new identity, letting the subconscious do the rest? Neville Goddard called sleep the gateway to creation. He taught that your subconscious is most impressionable right before drifting off. In that twilight state, the line between imagination and reality disappears. That's why the moments before sleep are sacred. Instead of replaying worries or regrets, use them to rehearse your fulfilled life. Picture one simple, vivid moment that the version of you who already has your desire would naturally experience, and then drift into sleep, feeling it real. Keep it simple. Don't force complicated scenes or long stories. The subconscious responds best to clarity. For example, if your desire is financial freedom, imagine a loved one smiling and saying, "You did it." Feel the warmth of that moment, the relief, the pride. Or if your wish is love, imagine holding hands, laughing together, or hearing "I love you." These short sensory scenes bypass resistance and plant the seed of assumption deeply. The key isn't to visualize perfectly, it's to feel naturally. Neville often said, "It's not what you do, it's the state from which you do it." If your imagination feels effortless, peaceful, and joyful, you're doing it right. The scene doesn't have to be grand, it just needs to imply fulfillment, like a snapshot that carries the entire story within it. Let the feeling carry you into sleep. Right before sleep, the conscious mind begins to dissolve. That's your opening. You're not reasoning or analyzing anymore. You're simply accepting. In that receptive state, every image and emotion becomes instruction to your subconscious. You're whispering to your inner director, "This is who I am now." And once the subconscious accepts that script, the outer play has no choice but to perform it. Neville's method, known as SATS, state akin to sleep, is deceptively simple but incredibly powerful. Many people underestimate it because it doesn't require effort. But that's the point. The subconscious doesn't respond to struggle. It responds to relaxed conviction. Fall asleep as if your wish were already fulfilled, and you'll wake up in a world subtly shifting to match it. You might notice tiny synchronicities the next day, people mentioning things related to your desire, opportunities emerging out of nowhere, or an unexpected feeling of peace. These are not coincidences, they're echoes of your new state. The more consistently you fall asleep in that identity, the faster the outer world conforms. Conscious creation works while you rest. Don't worry if your mind drifts or if you fall asleep mid-scene. In fact, that's ideal. The last feeling you carry into sleep is what impresses the subconscious, not how perfectly you visualize. The goal isn't to finish the scene, it's to feel it so vividly that your body believes it. That's the seed Neville spoke of, planted in imagination, watered by rest. For those who struggle to feel it real, start with gratitude. Feel thankful as if it already happened. Gratitude dissolves resistance faster than anything else. It signals to your mind, "This is done." From that emotional certainty, slip into sleep like a satisfied child after a long day of play. That's the frequency of fulfillment, the energy that rewires everything. Over time, this nightly ritual transforms not only your results, but your self-concept. You stop chasing outcomes because you've already become the one who lives them in consciousness. The world merely adjusts the props. You'll realize that manifestation isn't about doing more. It's about dreaming consciously. And if your nights can rewrite your days so powerfully, what happens when your feelings, gratitude, and peace fuse completely with this new role? Neville Goddard said, "Feeling is the secret," and he meant it literally. Thought alone doesn't create, feeling does. When you truly feel something, you impress it upon the subconscious. That emotion becomes your energetic signature, your personal frequency in the law of assumption. Gratitude, peace, and certainty are not just pleasant states. They're the indicators that you've crossed from hoping into being. They mean the identity shift has already happened within. Think of feeling as the glue between imagination and reality. You can visualize all day long, but without emotional conviction, it's like writing in sand. Feeling, however, carves your assumption into stone. When you feel gratitude as though the desire were already fulfilled, you fuse yourself to that reality. Gratitude isn't a response to what happened, it's the evidence that it already has in consciousness. Peace is another signpost. The moment you stop searching, worrying, or overanalyzing, you know you've stepped into the new role. Peace doesn't mean passivity, it means trust. You're no longer negotiating with life because you know the scene is already written. That calm assurance is the state Neville spoke of when he said to live in the end. You've stopped asking, when will it come? Because internally it's already done. Certainty is perhaps the most magnetic emotion of all. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet confidence of someone who knows how the movie ends, even if the current scene looks chaotic. This is the essence of conscious creation, to walk through uncertainty as if guided by an unseen script. When you feel certain, you emit the energy of inevitability, and life mirrors that certainty right back to you. Many misunderstand emotion in manifestation. They try to force good feelings or deny negative ones. But Neville taught that emotion should arise naturally from assumption, not manipulation. When you genuinely believe you already have what you desire, the feeling of joy, gratitude, or relief flows effortlessly. You're not manufacturing it. It's the emotional byproduct of a changed identity. Think of gratitude as spiritual gravity. It pulls your manifestations into form. When you wake up thankful for what's unseen, the universe has no choice but to make it visible. Peace, gratitude, and certainty together form the holy trinity of manifestation. They're the proof that you're no longer playing the old character who lacks. They mark the moment you've become the one who lives fulfilled. If you've ever met someone who radiates calm confidence, you've seen this in action. They rarely chase, they never rush, and yet things seem to fall into place for them. That's because they're not acting as if. They're acting from knowing. They're playing the role with full embodiment, and life responds to the conviction behind their energy. That's the law of assumption expressed through being. Feeling also has memory. The more often you dwell in gratitude and certainty, the more your nervous system recognizes it as normal. You're literally rewiring your emotional baseline to match your desired reality. That's why Neville's method isn't about intensity, it's about consistency. Feel it again and again until it becomes effortless, and then watch the play rearrange itself. The real sign of transformation isn't that things look different outside, it's that they feel different inside. The peace you carry becomes the prophecy of what's coming. You've stepped out of the old role not through struggle, but through surrender. And once you're fused to the role emotionally, the rest of the world starts catching up. Because when your feeling becomes unshakable, the scene can no longer contradict it. But what are the signs that the world has already begun responding to this new role you've assumed? When the inner world changes, the outer can't help but follow. Neville Goddard often said, "The world is a mirror forever reflecting what you are doing within yourself." Once you assume a new identity, the reflection begins to morph. People start responding to you in ways that confirm your new state. Opportunities arise effortlessly. Coincidences multiply. What once felt like struggle begins to unfold as synchronicity. That's how you know the play has started to rewrite itself. At first, these shifts may seem subtle. A stranger compliments you on something you recently began to believe about yourself. An unexpected message arrives confirming your assumption. Or maybe you notice resistance fading. You're calmer, lighter, more grounded. These are not random events. They're signals that your vibration has changed. Life is simply reflecting back the character you're now playing. One of Neville's most powerful teachings is that you don't have to chase confirmation. It will chase you. The scene rearranges itself naturally to match your inner conviction. Suddenly, people who once ignored you take interest. Challenges dissolve without struggle. Situations that seemed impossible a week ago unfold with ease. That's not luck, it's law. The law of assumption is adjusting the props to match the actor. Sometimes, though, the shift feels chaotic at first. Old patterns crumble, people exit your life, and familiar routines break apart. Don't panic. That's not regression, it's reorganization. The old scene must collapse to make room for the new. When the world shakes, it's often proof that the foundation is changing. You're not losing, it's the stage being rebuilt to fit your new role. Pay attention to how you're treated. Others are mirrors wearing human faces. If you start being respected, valued, or loved in new ways, that's reflection of your inner worth rising. Conversely, if someone suddenly triggers you, it's showing you where remnants of the old self still linger. Either way, life is giving feedback on your assumption. You're learning your new lines as the play evolves. You may also notice time itself bending. Things that used to take months happen in days. Manifestations arrive before you finish asking. That acceleration is the momentum of belief. The more consistent your state, the faster the stage shifts. Reality isn't linear, it's responsive. The world doesn't move forward, it moves toward whoever you're being. A beautiful sign of transformation is effortlessness. You stop forcing and start allowing. You trust the process because you feel aligned. When the inner movie feels real, you no longer seek validation, you expect it. Life becomes playful again. That's the spiritual awakening Neville spoke of, realizing that reality is not happening to you, but through you. Even conversations start to change. People bring up topics that affirm your new path. You overhear sentences that sound like answers to prayers. Your environment becomes a living oracle reflecting your consciousness. These aren't coincidences. They're the proof that your assumption has reached critical mass. You've shifted your center of gravity into the new role. You'll also notice emotional neutrality toward your former desires. What once felt like longing now feels like familiarity. You don't crave it anymore because internally you already have it. That inner of course energy is the mark of true embodiment. It's the emotional signature of someone living in the end, unfazed by appearances, anchored in certainty. And when all of this starts unfolding, something remarkable happens. You begin to trust the unseen more than the seen. But what should you do when appearances still contradict your inner knowing, when the old scene tries to pull you back into doubt? Every transformation goes through a testing phase. Right after you assume a new state, life often presents you with scenes that seem to contradict it. Neville Goddard warned that this is not failure, it's confirmation. The old reality hasn't caught up yet, but it's dissolving. These moments are the crossroads where most people abandon the role too soon. They peek at the outer world, panic, and step out of character. But the wise student stays in costume, knowing the script must follow belief. Imagine an actor on stage suddenly forgetting his lines because the audience isn't reacting as expected. That's what happens when you let appearances dictate your faith. Conscious creation demands inner consistency, not outer validation. The law of assumption guarantees that the scene will conform, but only if you keep playing your part. Reality bends to persistence, not impatience. Neville taught that your assumption hardens into fact through emotional loyalty. You don't drop the role just because the world looks the same for a while. You hold it, breathe it, and continue to act from it until life has no choice but to rearrange. Tests are simply the echoes of your old vibration fading out. Don't answer them, don't explain, don't justify. Stay still in your new knowing. Think of a seed in the ground. Just because you don't see it sprouting doesn't mean it isn't growing. The soil is working invisibly, responding to the care and belief of the sower. Likewise, your manifestations germinate below the surface of visibility. To dig them up in doubt is to kill their progress. Patience is the posture of power in spiritual awakening. The mind will tempt you with evidence. See, nothing's changing, but that voice belongs to the old self. When it speaks, smile and stay silent. The new identity doesn't argue, it simply is. You remain faithful to your new script as naturally as breathing. That's how you prove to the subconscious that this version of you is non-negotiable. It's not a wish anymore, it's identity. During these tests, it helps to anchor yourself in feeling. Gratitude, peace, and certainty are the stabilizers that keep you in costume. When fear whispers, return to gratitude. Thank you, it's already done. When doubt knocks, breathe peace into your body. When logic fights, choose certainty. Each emotion reaffirms your assumption and silences resistance. You'll know you're passing the test when your reaction changes. The same situation that once triggered panic now meets calm acceptance. That's mastery. You're no longer swayed by appearances because you recognize them as old scenes fading out. The actor has moved on, and soon the stage will follow. Reality has no defense against persistence in faith. Sometimes the test comes disguised as silence. Nothing seems to happen, but even silence is a response. It's life aligning the next act. Neville reminded us that the law works in secret, just like nature. The tree doesn't grow while being watched. It grows in stillness. Your inner conviction is the sunlight guiding its form. So when appearances contradict your assumption, smile inwardly. You're witnessing the friction between two realities, the one you're leaving and the one you've claimed. Don't negotiate with the old scene. Stay dressed as the fulfilled version, even if the audience doubts the script. The final act will always reveal the truth of who you persisted in being, because when you remain loyal to the role no matter what, the play must eventually yield. And when it does, when the scene finally mirrors your faith, you realize something profound. You were never waiting for the world to change. You were waiting to become the one who commands it. Neville Goddard often said, "You do not attract what you want, you attract what you are." That single sentence carries the whole secret. The outer world isn't a stubborn obstacle. It's a mirror patiently waiting for your reflection to stabilize. When you become the version of yourself who already lives the life you desire, the world rearranges like obedient scenery. It's not the scene that shifts first. It's the actor who steps into a new costume of consciousness. Becoming is the real manifestation process. It's not about forcing outcomes or chasing signs. It's about inward transformation so complete that the new story feels inevitable. You no longer wonder when it will happen, because in your inner world, it already has. That's what it means to live in the end. The desire dissolves into being. You stop asking and start embodying. And in that quiet certainty, the outer world takes its cue. Everything in life responds to identity. If you see yourself as abundant, abundance confirms it. If you see yourself as loved, love finds you. You don't need to convince anyone. Your energy speaks louder than your words. The law of assumption works automatically once you establish who you are being. The world simply mirrors your emotional baseline. It's not magic, it's alignment between your inner and outer realities. You can test this truth instantly. Walk through your day as if you were already the person you wish to be. How would you speak? How would you sit, smile, or make decisions? How would you handle problems? When you play the role sincerely, even for a few hours, you'll notice subtle shifts in how people react. That's because consciousness always precedes form. Life responds to the frequency of your self-concept. At first, this practice feels like imagination, but soon it becomes instinct. You no longer have to act the part because it feels natural. That's when the change is real. You've crossed from effort to embodiment, from trying to being. And in that moment, manifestation stops being a goal and becomes a lifestyle. You're no longer seeking creation, you're living it. The most beautiful part? Once you live this way, life starts to feel scripted in your favor. Conversations align, timing perfects itself, and coincidences multiply. You find yourself exactly where you need to be without effort. The stage lights follow your movement because you've become the star of your own play. Conscious creation becomes less about control and more about flow. Neville's teachings were never about manipulation. They were about recognition. Recognizing that everything you experience is your own imagination made visible. You stop trying to change the movie and instead change the projector. You stop begging life to cooperate and start directing it through the authority of feeling. That's the essence of spiritual awakening. Realizing that reality is not fixed, it's fluid, shaped by your assumption. And here's the paradox. When you finally become the fulfilled version of yourself, you lose the obsession with manifestation altogether. You no longer chase outcomes because you already are the one living them internally. Life becomes a mirror of your inner completion. That's when manifestation becomes effortless, because the work is done in consciousness. So yes, become first and the world will follow. The stage has always been yours, the spotlight waiting for your cue. Step into the role fully, speak your lines with conviction, and let life reveal what it's been rehearsing for you all along. The curtain rises for those who dare to play the part completely. So now the question isn't, when will it happen? It's, who am I being right now? Because the moment you become the one who already has it, life has no choice but to mirror that truth. This is the essence of Neville Goddard's teachings, the law of assumption in action, the bridge between imagination and reality. Pause and reflect for a second. What role have you been playing unconsciously? The seeker or the one who's already found? The one waiting for proof or the one who lives in the end? Your outer world will always answer that question with perfect honesty. If you want a different reflection, change the actor. Begin tonight. Before sleep, assume the wish fulfilled, feel it real, and let gratitude close the curtain. When you wake, live as that version. Walk, speak, and decide as the character who already owns the scene. Because when you become first, the world will follow. You are the writer, director, and star of your own story. The stage has always been yours. If this message spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications, because each week we go deeper into Neville Goddard's teachings and the art of conscious creation. Let's keep rewriting reality, one assumption at a time,